delighted that there are so many people here this afternoon. If this was a conference in the late afternoon, I'd be speaking to one person and their dog. I'd also just like to mention, I've noticed a few of you had a glass of wine over lunch, so I don't want spontaneous violence breaking out here this afternoon whilst I give my talk. I've been the Superintendent of Operations of the Public Order Branch for the last few years. I have, throughout my 25 years of policing, been heavily involved in public order policing. I currently have responsibility for planning the policing of all major events that come through into London, and obviously the most notable one recently was the G20 conference. Within my area of responsibility, I'm also responsible for the Public Order Intelligence Unit, looking at the resourcing of major-scale policing events within London, because contrary to popular belief within the media, we don't have a riot police per se. They are all officers who come from local stations, so whenever there is disorder, they're taken away from the local areas, and that has an impact on crime and antisocial behaviour in those areas. But also, one of the things I want to come back to, within the introduction was mentioned about people getting away with committing offences within disorder, and that's very much key to our strategy and tactics in dealing with it, so that we try and arrest as many people as possible post the event and not on the day, and I'll come back to that. But also, before I actually got involved in my current role, I was the Chief Inspector Partnership in Hackney, which is a very deprived area of North East London for those people who are unaware of it. And my key role within that was working with the local authority and other strategic partners in delivering a joined-up service, not only of police resources, but also working with outreach social workers. And that's a bit of my background and understanding. What I thought I would do is give a little bit of a case study around a series of disorder that we did not see coming for a million years, because it came without any warning, and talk through some of the tactics and some of the lessons learned, and some of those things will probably raise more questions than give you answers, but for you to consider and to take away from here this afternoon. Sunday the 28th of December, in response to the deployment of Israeli troops into Gaza, at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, about 1,300 people attempted to get into the Israeli embassy in Kensington Palace Gardens, which is a very affluent area of West London. No indication this was going to happen, completely spontaneous. Local police arrived to try and sort it out, and violent struggles ensued for quite a period of time, and eventually law and order was sort of restored at about 11 o'clock that evening. Based on that, obviously we didn't know what the Israeli military intentions were, so we couldn't predict this demonstration coming. But based on the fact that that had happened on the Sunday afternoon, we put a plan in place to deal with people turning up outside the Israeli embassy the next day. And by luck of habit, members of the public did turn up. And we had again on that afternoon approximately 1,800 people turned out outside the Israeli embassy. There was high levels of disorder. And what was interesting on this occasion is that we actually had people who had been bussed down from the Midlands, places like Birmingham, to join in the disorder that occurred on the Monday. On the Tuesday, we were approached by the British Muslim Initiative, who were supported by Stop the War Coalition, who requested a march and rally on the 3rd of January to highlight the issues for the Palestinian people within the Gaza. After a huge amount of negotiations, and this is one of the things that we try and do within the Met whenever we get demonstrations, is to negotiate very closely with all the stakeholders who are involved with the demonstration, including the community areas that it's going to go through with. We agreed that there would be a march that would go along the embankment, pass Downing Street, and finish in Trafalgar Square, which is about 2.5 miles away from the embassy. Throughout the week, the evening demonstrations continued, although a lot less violent, and there was a huge amount of disruption being caused to the local community, who because due to the location of the Israeli embassy, we actually had to block off half the road to give people the area to stand in. So there was a severe disruption to the local traffic and to the local community, and the retail community were being impacted. I think I'll come back to that. On Saturday the 3rd of January, the march and rally took place, and the numbers were far higher than we had anticipated, and even the organisers anticipated. We made about 20,000 people, mainly peaceful. During the initial march and rally, it was mainly peaceful, but there were a few arrests for low level public disorder. However, following the conclusion of the rally, something that we did anticipate, but not to the level that was that actually took part in it, there was a breakaway march that left Trafalgar Square and made its way to the Israeli embassy. This got to the total of about 4,000 people. I'd just like to put a little bit of insight, a personal insight into this. On this day, this happened on the 3rd, but we weren't anticipating large amounts of disorder, large numbers, maybe a couple of scuffles, but nothing major. My stepdaughter, who was very keen to know what I did for a living, so I was told how hard I worked, decided to come with me and watch me throughout the day and to see what happened. About 5 o'clock in the evening, major disorder broke out outside the Israeli embassy. And after about 2 hours, we managed to contain and corral the people involved in the disorder outside the embassy, which was about 800 people in total. One of the tactics that we use, I talked about containment. If you've been following the media and criticism within the press around the way that the Metropolitan Police dealt with the G20 protests, we tend to use a system where we contain people within an area and confine those people who are involved in troublemaking within a tight area and stop them from leaving effectively until we can get control of the situation, as opposed to dispersing. I know there's some media attention and controversy around this. The reason that we do that is because we look at it, last time we did major dispersal in large-scale public order situation was in the poll tax riots in the 1990s, and we had major rioting, major criminal damage occurred. We've actually found that by putting a containment in, we reduce the footprint of the disorder. The disorder itself tends to subside when they realise that they are completely surrounded by police. And then what we do then is a controlled extraction, where we literally bring everybody out one at a time from the containment. So we imagine 800 people, bring them out, we take the photographs, we identify where they're from, and that then helps us in relation to post-investigation inquiry. I know that there was an issue that was raised this morning about people wearing masks in public places. We have legislation in the UK, but where disorder breaks out, the senior police officer at the scene can require people to remove masking if they think it is linked to the disorder. It's a very useful tool. So after this day of what was quite a contentious, and until that point, some of the most spontaneous and high levels of violent disorder we'd seen for a long period of time, going back to my little bit of personal input into it, I took my stepdaughter home about midnight, and she turned around and said to my wife, "You have no idea what your husband does for a living." In relation to the disorder that had been going on now for a week and the disruption that it caused within the community, I then formally approached the Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police to put in place restrictions on the demonstrations so that we could control the time and numbers of people taking part on the evening demonstrations, because that was having a huge impact in relation to retail community. So that was the first time we'd ever actually done that in advance, along with the Metropolitan Police, because we like to think we're the biggest kids on the block. We normally do it on the day, but this time we decided we would do it for a preemptive strike.